Adherents of the Little Season theory may point to Christian artwork produced during the Middle Ages and Renaissance as evidence that the millennial kingdom was established on earth at that time. We are all familiar with the sort of paintings in which Jesus and the Christian saints are depicted with halos around their heads. This leads Little Seasonists to assert that, rather than being merely artistic representations of the apostles and other persons who have been celebrated as pious believers in church history, these likenesses were more like portraits of the immortal glorified saints who were residing on earth with Christ for the duration of the first 1,000 years of it. Regrettably, this notion, like the perception that the extravagant cathedrals from the same period attest to the establishment of Christ's millennial kingdom at that time, is rooted in confusion about what distinguishes the holy from the profane. In the account of Jesus' transfiguration to his glorified body in Matthew 17 verse 2, we are told that he was transfigured before them, and his face shone like the sun, and his clothes became white as the light. From this, we can understand that his whole body took on a radiant glow. We might safely infer, from a synthesis of the statements in 1 Corinthians 15 verse 52 and Philippians 3 verse 21, that the saints' bodies are glorified in the same manner at the moment of their being changed at Christ's second advent at the last trumpet. The Handbook of Christian Symbolism, authored by the brothers William and George Audsley, who were the architects of numerous churches and synagogues in England, defines the terms nimbus and aureole in Christian religious iconography and the difference between them. It is not uncommon to hear the word glory used to express the nimbus, while the word aureole is very seldom used at all. The aureole is a most important attribute in Christian art. It is, in fact, an extended form of the nimbus, but is not used instead of it. The nimbus encircles the head or other portion of the body, the aureole encircles the whole body, and envelops it in a field of radiance and splendor. Sometimes the aureole takes the form of the body and clings closely to it, appearing as a fringe of light. The authors added that the nimbus is more frequently seen in historic Christian artwork than the aureole, because the aureole was introduced later and discontinued much earlier, but that it is the use of both the nimbus and the aureole together that signifies glory. They wrote that a person represented with the nimbus investing his head and the aureole surrounding his body is said to be glorified or in glory. So, the visible glory of Jesus' transfigured body, as it is described in the Bible with reference first to the radiance of his face and then to that of his body, can be seen to meet both of the above criteria and would be properly referred to and represented in Christian art as a nimbus combined with an aureole. By contrast, what we typically see in such old artworks depicting Jesus and the saints is only a nimbus encircling the head, which we commonly refer to as a halo. Regardless whether an artist in every case was actually aware of the differing significance between the two symbols, the use of the nimbus alone was the prevailing tradition, though it was not a signifier of glorification on its own. Therefore, as far as most of these paintings are concerned, from the perspective of Christian iconography, the saints are not portrayed as glorified. The use of the nimbus symbol reveals something deeper than that, though. It has been confirmed by numerous scholars, Christian, secular, and occultist, that the nimbus, or halo, encircling the head is originally a pagan representation of the power of the sun and the sun god. The author of Rome, Pagan and Papal, Morant Brock, confirmed the above distinction between the nimbus and the aureole and called attention to the use of the nimbus around the head in various heathen religions, asserting that it was absorbed into Christianity from them. Brock's statements underscore how this symbol was not adopted while Christian worship still retained the greater part of its purity, during its first few centuries, a time period that was, in consequence of that degree of purity, marked by a proportionately intense degree of persecution, but only afterward when the new religious tolerance toward Christianity, ushered in by Constantine, engendered a sense of physical security, which led to spiritual complacency, and which, in turn, invited compromise and corruption. Everyone has noticed the disk of light, or luminous circle, which, in ecclesiastical pictures, usually surrounds the head of the Virgin Mary, or of a saint, as well as that of Christ. It is called the nimbus, or sometimes the aureola, although the technical meaning of the latter term is restricted to the oval or circular halo which surrounds the whole body of a saint. It is often supposed to be an exclusively Christian symbol, indicative of divinity or holiness, but such an illusion is quickly dispelled by a little research. For it appears in representations of the gods and goddesses of Babylon, of Greece and Rome, and even of India and China. A passage of Virgil, Aeneid 12:162-4, will give us some clue to its meaning. In describing Latinus, the poet says, Qui tempora circum orati bis sex radi fulgentia singent, solis avi specimen. It appears, therefore, that the nimbus is the symbol of the sun deity, or denotes some connection with him. Hence Apollo is often represented with it. And in a well-known painting, found in Pompeii, of the scene between Ulysses and Circe, the head of the latter is surrounded by a luminous circle, because she was the daughter of the sun. But to understand its full significance, we must remember that in the obscene nature worship which is at the bottom of all false religions, the sun, and also the kindred element of fire, is the male emblem, and consequently the meaning of his sign was extended in such a way as we cannot here describe. Derived as it was from the pagans, the nimbus is not of frequent occurrence in Christian representations during the times of persecution, the first 3 centuries, and part of the 4th. Nor is it often found in the catacombs, as a competent authority, M. Diderot, informs us. But as soon as unrestrained corruption set in, this heathen symbol was openly adopted by the Church, and began to appear upon the heads of her deities, angels, and saints, as well as upon those of Jupiter, Apollo, Mercury, and the heathen emperors. The Audsleys, in their Handbook of Christian Symbolism, affirm that the nimbus originated in paganism, and that it began to appear in Christian art at right about the time that Brock said it had, in the 4th century. The Christians, deriving their first ideas from pagan art, adopted the nimbus at a very early period. We are led to believe that examples of this attribute have been found in the catacombs of Rome, dating as far back as the 4th century. From that time until the 17th century, the nimbus was used in all branches of Christian art. In Notes on the Nimbus, Gilbert French touched on the primitive inclination toward worship of the sun as the symbol of deity and the custom in various cultures of depicting gods with rays of light emanating from their heads. The sun is, of all natural objects, that which uneducated humanity has in every age, and in almost all climes, looked upon with the greatest awe and reverence. Many nations retain that luminary as the visible sign or emblem of the unseen God, to whom, through it, they continued to offer sacrifice and worship. Rays of fire or of light, thus naturally became emblems of divine power. Jupiter bore the lightning, Apollo was crowned with sunbeams, and Diana wore the crescent moon as a diadem. The heads of gods of Japan, and Burma, are surrounded by rays corresponding with those of the classical Apollo. In the worship of Augustus Caesar, Alexander Del Mar describes the haloed figures of the Greco-Roman gods that form part of a 3rd century marble engraving, the Egypto-Grecian planisphere at the Louvre, remarking on the similarity to the haloed saints depicted in later Byzantine Christian art. Helios, or the sun, wears a chlamys over the shoulder, his head is encircled with 7 rays. Aphrodite, or Venus, is nude. She is decorated with a necklace and holds in her left hand a mirror. Hermes, or Mercury, has a winged head and a wand in his hand. Selene, or the moon, has a crescent above the forehead. The heads of these divinities are each backed by a disk, halo, or nimbus, similar to those of the later Byzantine saints. The renowned mystic, Manly P. Hall, in his exposition of occult symbolical philosophy, The Secret Teachings of All Ages, is very matter-of-fact about the understanding, in occult thought, of the nimbus as symbolic of the sun, and even provides guidance on discerning the deeper solar and lunar attributes of the symbol according to its particular form and shape. The golden halos around the heads of pagan gods and Christian saints refer both to their being bathed in the glory of the sun, and also to the fact that a spiritual sun within their own natures is radiating its glow ray, and surrounding them with celestial splendor. Whenever the nimbus is composed of straight radiant lines, it is solar in significance. Whenever curved lines are used for beams, it partakes lunar nature. Whenever they are united, it symbolizes a harmonious blending of both principles. The circular nimbus is solar and masculine, while the lozenge-shaped nimbus, or vesica piscis, is lunar and feminine. As I see it, the prevailing tradition in medieval and Renaissance art, of portraying Christ and the saints with the pagan symbol of the head halo, serve not only to subtly foster in the collective Christian mind a subconscious association of them with the solar deity, but also to imply Jesus' divinity as being equal to, or perhaps even identical to, that claimed of the gods of other religions, who for ages had been similarly depicted. Far from portraying glorified saints who lived on earth during the first millennium of Christianity, this sort of artwork was employed as a tool by the adversary to insinuate and propagate within Christianity a concept most abominable to God. Then he brought me to the door of the gate of the Lord's house which was toward the north, and, behold, there sat women weeping for Tammuz. Then said he unto me, Hast thou seen this, O Son of man? Turn thee yet again, and thou shalt see greater abominations than these. And he brought me into the inner court of the Lord's house, and, behold, at the door of the temple of the Lord, between the porch and the altar, were about 25 men, with their backs toward the temple of the Lord, and their faces toward the east, and they worshipped the sun toward the east. Ezekiel 8 verses 14-16, KJV. As we will see going forward, the concept of the sun god Apollo, the son of Zeus Jupiter, and its subtle integration within Christianity, are extremely significant for identifying the particular stage of the satanic force that is currently in effect on earth, and our current position within the eschatological timeline.